the goal of today's talk is if you are reading a paper or if you are reading a book, how do we get the citation information from them all the way into Microsoft Word in a way that is useful to you and that minimizes the amount of work you have to do? And you're probably looking here and thinking, Colin, this is not a lot. This is a lot of work. It's not a lot of work. What on earth are you talking about? But my goal is to show you how to get the entire system set up here. I'm going to make an account from scratch, all that stuff, show you how to get you from reading a book, reading a paper, all the way to a pretty citation, whatever format you need in Microsoft Word. The reason I made this slide here is not because I enjoy making slides, which I do. It's because I'm going to come back and reference kind of where we are along the stage here, so that we can, so you can understand kind of what this actually means in context, what you're actually doing. So I'm going to start with the idea that obviously for academic work, you need to reference sources, and in that there might be a specific quote or something. But frankly, in this case here, the specific quote or what it is doesn't really matter. What really matters is where we can access it. And generally, that is going to be through the internet. And even through a book, we're going to actually be using Google Books as a service in order to extract the information. And I'm going to show you exactly how all of that works now. All of this is done through a piece of software called Mendeley. Mendeley is a citation or reference manager. So all of what we do is going to be revolving around this piece of software here. And what I'm going to first start with is how to install it, the plugin for Microsoft Word, and the browser plugin as well. So little puzzle pieces here. So I'm going to get started with that first. And when you go on the Mendeley website, you're going to click download now, kind of first of all, and then you're going to download whatever version it is. So I'm using Mac OS, and that will download. I'm not actually going to touch that. I have it installed here, but it's a fresh install, and it's asking me for my registration information. So I'm actually going to go about doing that. I did set my browser to the Safari as the default, and that's okay. So I'm going to sign in with an email address. I'm going to make a new account. And then I'm going to make a quick note of all of these as well, just so that I don't forget them. I'm not going to give them all of my information, and I am going to ask Safari to create a password for me. Yes, I'll use it. I will stay signed in, and I will register. So they're going to register me now, and I have my Mendeley account. Easy peasy. I'll accept all the cookies. I am a doctoral student, and I study medicine. Good for me. Don't make me public. Continue. So you have to kind of dig through here a little bit, but I now have my account. What I'm going to do next is, so go here. I'm going to sign in with the account I just made into Mendeley Desktop. And I need to remember these credentials because I'm going to be using them for a number of things. I do want to stay signed in, and I'm going to sign in. It's going to take a second, and then it's going to pop up with these two options right away. And it's going to say, you've installed the desktop version. Cool. And then the next thing is this plugin for Microsoft Word. So I do want to install that. And I'm going to go back here, and that is this component right here. This is what allows the software application Mendeley to talk to Microsoft Word. We really, really want that. That's really, really important, because otherwise you just have a collection of references, which can be useful, but it's not what we want here. So I'm going to go install now, and it's saying, well, Word is running. Can we close it? I'm saying, yeah, go wild. And it closed Word, and it's saying it's installed. So that is now, of the things that we have to install, we've installed the software, we've installed it into Microsoft Word as well. But we're not quite out of the trouble yet, I guess, because I also need to, if I scroll down here, they talk about these tools and add-ons. There's two of them that they have. There's the web importer, which I'm going to talk about in 20 seconds, and then there's the citation plugin. They have it for Word, LibreOffice, and BibTeX. I'm using Word here, obviously, so I downloaded the Word one. They don't have one for Google Docs. A piece of software called Zotero, which is very similar, does. I've never used Zotero, and I'm not comfortable with it, so I chose not to go with it here. So instead, I went with, obviously, Mendeley. So I also want to find out about this web importer. And I'm going to kind of hop over here really quick. The web importer is this piece right here. And that's really important because it not only allows us to process books the easiest, in my opinion, or one of the easy ways, it also allows you to, if you are on the website of a journal article or a journal, to be able to access and import the citation directly. When it works great, but you'll notice that sort of caveat there. So I do want to get it for Chrome, which is the browser I'm using here. I click the button. I'm going to click Add to Chrome. It can do everything, which is a bit scary and intimidating, but that's all right. And then I want to go and open it up here. well, I'm going to pin it because we will be using it shortly. And I have to log in with my account there very shortly. So we're now at the point where this piece is almost done. We're definitely done this piece here, and we've also got this piece in here. And the piece, the I guess idea or notion of what I kind of connect these two arrows here is this account that you made, the one that you saw me struggle to make a bit earlier. So what I'm going to do next is I am actually going to log into the Mendeley website here super quickly with my account, just so that it's there. It really does want to know kind of who I am, and that's a very sort of important feature for it. And I'm going to plop this in. I don't want to stay, sorry, I will stay signed in. I'll sign into my account. It is by a company called Elsevier, which is a big publishing house. Okay, so actually I'm just going to point this out super quick. Of the downloads they offered, we've now tackled all three: the reference manager, the web importer, and the citation plugin. Just something super fun, because now we're going to get to the really fun part, and that is actually starting to cite something. So there's three real ways of getting something into this Mendeley application. One of them is, again, this browser extension. Another one is an actual citation file, and I'll show you that super quick. And then another one is by actually adding it into the application manually. And I'll also show you an example of that as well. And there's this option concerns a lot of students for a particular reason, and I'll show you why it doesn't really matter. So we're going to get started with this, and I'm actually going to get started with a paper, and I'm going to use one of my own papers as academics tend to. So this is a paper I wrote for my master's degree. It was the first one that got published, kind of my first adult paper. I've called it. Excited about it. I think it's good stuff. And I really want to cite this in a piece of work that I'm doing. And so I kind of have a number of options on how to do that. And the first one is just kind of going here is using this browser extension. So going back, let's say I found that article, and I'm like, oh, this is great. This is exactly what I want. And I should be able to click this Mendeley button. And this is exactly what we want. So it pops up and it says, hey, we need to use some info. I'm going to click sign in because I do want them to have that info, and I'm okay with them having that info. And because we already signed into our account, we just sort of fly right in there. And we start with what it does, and you saw that really quickly, is it found the journal article and it says, okay, we know what this is. We know what the bibliographic information is. And if I know this one's correct, I can just click add to Mendeley. Gotta give it a second, and it's done. If sometimes I can find the PDF of it, especially if it's like an open access article. This one's not, unfortunately. So sometimes it'll actually import the PDF for you as well. So let's actually see what just happened there. Because what we did is we were reading my super cool paper. We saw something we liked in it. We went, this is on the internet, and through the internet, we used this browser extension right here. So let's give it a shot. What we now need to do is check, okay, well, did it actually get into the Mendeley software? So I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to sync. This is something you'll have to do pretty frequently, unfortunately. It doesn't sync automatically, at least I don't believe it does. But I can now find the article right here. This is exactly it. Has the authors correct, and it has, it generally gets most things correct. It is not perfect. It is not a lossless process. Excuse me, but I found in general, it does it good enough. So you can see here, it does populate a bunch of information as well. Some journals really like it when you have the PubMed identification. This does not always capture it, especially if you're not getting it from like the PubMed interface. So that's okay. And then it also says, it kind of gives you this notification up here. You kind of imported this like through the software. It might not have perfectly. Please just be aware of that. So I'll say the details are correct and we're good to go. So that explains the first way of how to get something in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain all these methods of getting things in. And then subsequently, I'll explain the methods of, or really the singular method of putting it into Microsoft Word. So hopefully that made sense for you. What we did is, is we went into Google Chrome here, and when we were actually on the page for the article, is we clicked the Mendeley Web Importer button here. So what I'll do next is I'm going to look at a similar article that was published in this journal. So, okay, let's say I really like this one as well. There's another option for getting things into your Mendeley software, and that is through the citation button. This is found in different places in different pieces of software, and I'll actually go to PubMed and show you how to do it there as well. It's not always the most intuitive, unfortunately. So you can see this kind of top option here, which gives you the prefab one. I have no interest in that, even though it's a really cool option that you can format it however you'd like. I want the citation. There's a whole bunch of different formats here, and if I'm going to be really honest with you, I don't really know the difference between them, and I'm sure someone who's more technologically capable at it would explain exactly why they're really different. They all kind of more or less contain the same information. I generally will go with RIS, but like you can sort of mix and match, and you're generally going to be okay. I'm going to download the citation, and you get this RIS file right here. And if I'm going to go into my downloads, and if you double click it at first, oh, there is a different piece of software that was loaded up to open it. You can go open with and Mendeley and open it right away. I'm not sure if you saw that. Like there was no kind of stopping or passing go or collecting $200. It was just instant. And there it is, Ontario Pharmacists' Perceptions of the Ontario of the Pharmaceutical Opinion Program. And that's just in there right away. So I'm going to actually go with a different paper, and I'm going to do it a slightly different way, just for your reference. I'm going to click Cite once again. And again, there's generally going to be like either a reference or a cite button. I'm going to go download citation, and I know this is the one that ends in 329. I'm just going to remember that. And then I'm going to, I know it's in my downloads. That's where it's set to do, 329. So I'm actually going to go into Mendeley, and I'm going to go File, and I'm going to go Import, and then .ris. And if I go into downloads, 329 is the one I want. I click open, and there it is right away. Initial experience. So hopefully that makes sense as well. And that's really the second way here is downloading this, like it's a text file really. And if you were to open it in, which I will, for your interest, I guess, if you're to open it in a plain text editor like TextEdit, you can see like it's just a whole bunch of text. Like these are really small files. You can see we're measuring it in bytes, and it's really just like a list of what the data is, which is great. So you saw the options for Mendeley to actually import it. If you look here, it's either .bib, .xml, or .ris. I've definitely had luck kind of doing the third option for importing. This is generally more a Mac OS thing, but you can also do it in Windows sometimes, just dragging and dropping in. I've dragged and dropped in all sorts of files, and Mendeley sort of figured it out. God bless it. So if you can't find one of those three options and you're kind of struggling with what else to do, generally I found that works well, is the dragging and dropping in. Let's say you are completely flummoxed and you are like, okay, I'm trying the button, there's no citation option. How on earth do I get more information in? So I'm actually going to use an example here of a paper that I wrote. This is in the National Geriatric Interest Group national or annual publication, I believe, and it's not really like a peer-reviewed publication, so there's no sort of appropriate bibliographic data with it, but I still want to import it in here because I think it's really good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the add. Oh, that's not what I'm going to go File and Add Entry manually. I'm going to have to kind of manipulate this a little bit and get it out of the way. And this is where a lot of students get really tripped up, is they're like, okay, well, what option do I pick? If it's not a journal article, it's I don't know, students I've talked to have found like the wildest exceptions to this I've ever seen. And I really don't understand how they do it. And the short answer is pick the thing that you feel is closest to what you've got, and you're probably going to be okay. Because it really just changes what the options are here that it shows you, and you can very easily put it in yourself as well. Very, very, very easily. So let's say I want to do this guy here, this paper. I'm going to try to copy this and see if I can paste it in for title. Yeah, it likes it, which is great. It did have the space there, unfortunately. Adding in authors is kind of frustrating sometimes because it's like, it likes it in a really specific format. So this was Peter Huang, who wrote it with me, H-O-A-N-G, Peter. You'll see this institution option here. Don't click it. Hit enter when you've put the person's name in here. And then Whaley Collin is me. The journal is the National Ger. I believe that's what it's called. This was in 2018. I can find the rest of the info for it. Volume 6. So for volume, I'm going to put 6. There's no real issue for it. And then I believe I was on page 10 and 11 or something like that. Yeah. 10 to 11. For URL, I'm just going to plop the URL right in there. It has none of this other information. And if I want to, I could also add the file there. I don't really feel the need to. I don't really like using Mendeley as a place for keeping track of information. Then I click save. And if I go up here, you can see the entry is right there. Sometimes things might not totally go right. So for example, the URL wasn't added in there and I'm not really sure why. If I later found out that the issue they'd like me to cite is April 2018, I can very easily go and add it in, and it's now saved right away. Super duper duper easy. If I want to add notes, let's say I was taking notes on it and I wanted to add notes, then I could do it there. And then as well, if there's an abstract associated with this article, I could paste it in there as well, as I could have done earlier. So that's really, if I go back to this slide here, I talked about how to use the browser extension to get an article, journal article in through the browser. We talked about downloading those files, and then we also talked about how to do it manually. If you were to ask me, Colin, how do you do this most often? Generally, I'll actually use the browser extension. I find it's pretty good. And then as well, I will also download those files. Putting things in manually is tedious and very frustrating, and is kind of the reason that we use Mendeley in the first place. So it's like, well, I try not to do it as much as I can. I'm going to look at one other kind of journal article super quick, and that's going to be through PubMed. And in PubMed, I'm going to look up, just do COVID, I guess, why not? Treatment for COVID-19 and overview. And then they have this citation button here. And I believe the NBib file, I'm going to just drag it all. Oh, I can't drag it over Mendeley. I forget if Mendeley can or can't deal with it. It's been a little while, but what I'll try to do is just sort of drag it in here. Remember how we said like it's not actually one of the options here, but it still took it? That's exactly what I mean. So it's still like it kind of saw it and it's like, okay, yeah, we can kind of deal with this. And if we actually kind of go here, this is for Mac, and I'm not sure if this is the case for Windows. If I were to right click and say open with, and I click other, and I then search for Mendeley, I know how to type. I click applications. And then if I click all the applications here, you can see this is a bit of a process. Then I could double click it and open it there. And then finally, if you find that you're really doing a lot of kind of input output through PubMed, if you right click and then get info, you can open this open with, and then you can actually go about selecting, once I find it, Mendeley. Oh, I have to click all applications. And then I click always open with add. And then I click change all. It's going to prompt me, are you sure? And I am sure. So if I'm going to try selecting an additional one and see if that works, try this similar article here. I'm going to click cite, download NBib, open this, and there it is. And you can see how that does bring in the PM ID, the PubMed ID, which again, some journals really, really like. So that was getting a lot of information in, which is really good. And I think I covered all of the journal article stream. I'm just going to show you the book stream really quickly. And the answer is to use Google Books. Google Books is wonderful, and I really, really like it. So I was looking at my physiology textbook earlier, and that is Guyton and Hall, Textbook of Medical Physiology. So I already knew what I was thinking about. And it gave me a whole bunch of options here. You definitely want to look at the year of publication there to make sure you get the exact right version. But I know it was this one, the latest version. And then your options here, you can download it as a BibTeX, which again, we saw wasn't really one of the ones that, yeah, see my other program that I use for different stuff opens up. Mendeley doesn't open again. But if I were to drop this BibTeX into Mendeley, it knows what to do with it right away. But it's a bit, it doesn't quite have all the information like the city and the edition. I have gotten burned on that before. So you might want to spend a little bit of time making sure that that's in there and that's correct. And you can do that. Sometimes they'll have a preview that you can see if you don't, obviously because you have the physical book there. Here it's I think it's the 14th edition if I'm just reading that correctly. So 14, and again, I could enter in all of the other information that I need to. So that's kind of how to get a lot of this other information in for books. The one final thing is that sometimes, even though it's a book and that it picks the book option, it still includes the URL. I did have a TA kind of comment that I really like Google Books one day, which I really, really laughed at as he was searching through my bibliography. So I generally just kind of remove that now because I didn't actually, like I have the physical book, I didn't actually access it through Google Books. It doesn't really matter either way, but if you want to have a really, really clean set of references, then that's what you want to do. Okay, so we've now covered how to get books in through Google Books. We've covered how to get journal articles in and the 3 ways to do it. They're all in Mendeley, which is great. Now let's go over to Microsoft Word. So we'll fire up Word here really quick. And I do want to take a look at, so this is the paper that Trung and Venus had written with my assistants. And you can see there's a whole bunch of text here. This is really great stuff. How on earth are we actually going to get information in? It's kind of the question. But if you click references, there's a new fun addition that Microsoft Word has. That's this Mendeley sort of sub bar right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and cite myself at the end here in APA. So you can see there's a bunch of styles here, and then you can click more styles. It's going to want some access to some options, I guess, because it needs to communicate with the Mendeley app. If I open this up here, you can see, okay, well, there's more options for styles. So let's say I want, so they do have the AMA version. You can search, let's say there's a specific article, a journal that you want. So IEEE as an example, IEEE. This is ones that the community has made, but you can use the style. It'll download it and install it. You then have to go over to installed and select it and use that style. But for here, I am going to go with APA. So we've got APA 7th edition ready to roll here. I'm going to click done. And then now we get to the fun in Word. If you leave the option open for a little bit, Word gets a little angry. You can just hit retry and then it'll be fine. Word just gets impatient sometimes. But I'm going to show you, this is the really exciting part. So I now want to insert a citation. This is an in-text citation. I've just written this sentence here. And let's say I'm the one who had written something really insightful about it. So I want to insert my citation and I'm going to search up the author. Let's say this is the one I wrote with Peter. I click it, I insert, I hit OK, and there it is. So this is really great. All this is done for you. It uses something called a field code in Microsoft Word. If you're ever submitting to a journal and they say you can't have field codes, there's a certain way of getting rid of them. Just look it up on your own time. It's super quick. But in brief, you now have this citation in there. And let's say we actually wanted to do, at the end of this this end paragraph here, we wanted to do 2 of them at once. So I would click W, let's say I want this treatment for COVID-19, and I also want something that I had written, let's say this paper here. If I let this wait a little while longer, sometimes Microsoft Word again freaks out just like that. And it says, you've opened this software to do something, but we don't know what it is, and it's not responding. So just click OK and click retry and don't stress, and you'll see it formats the citation and puts it right in there like that. And again, this is all through the references tab and the specific kind of custom Mendeley add-in. So let's say you do now want to insert your references. We want to put them in there. What we can do is click Insert Bibliography. It'll take a second or two to format it, and then it'll plop it right in. Something to note super quickly is that it might not always fully get it 100% correct. I'd say it generally gets it like 90 to 95. It depends on how strict the venue or your professor is in terms of if they'll catch it or not, or the teaching assistant more likely. So I'm a big proponent of using a tool like Mendeley because you're going to get all of the information in you need. And unfortunately, you might not get everything correct, but you'll generally get it close enough. If you know that, for example, your professor or the classes, they're being real sticklers about this, you can go in and you can search how to deactivate those field codes, as I had said, and then you can go in and edit it manually. Let's say there had to be ease there. Sometimes it'll pop up with a warning, but more importantly, if you were to insert something else or refresh it, you can see that that edit was gone. And that's the exact same kind of thing that would happen if you inserted a new in-text citation or reinserted the references or something. So that's just something to be really cognizant of, is if you want to do changes, what I would generally do is wait until the end or start doing them in some of them on a separate thing, a separate Word document, and then just be prepared to kind of paste them in at the end. So again, it is a bit of a pain. Let's say we submitted it to a journal that we know uses APA, or let's say your professor says APA, and then they actually say, actually, I want you to use the American Medical Association version. So we can click that, and it'll actually reformat all of our citations. It is astonishing to me. This is by far one of my favorite parts of it. But for some of these citation styles, unfortunately, the frustrating thing is that the periods need to be in a different place with respect to the actual text. And that can mean that you have to kind of go back and manually do or undo that. So this is by far one of the most tedious parts of it. You can see that the references were also updated in a different format, in the AMA format. It is very, very frustrating. And that is by far one of the most frustrating parts about it. But at least you're not, sorry, that was the wrong button. At least you're not doing them all by hand. And that's the main thing. You don't have to edit them all by hand. And that's really what makes it a wonderful piece of software. So in summary, what we looked at here is how we got, whether it be a journal article or a book, we identified something that we liked from it that we wanted to cite. We learned how to use your internet browser, whether that be a book using Google Books or directly, if it's, again, a journal article, to either use the browser extension, the .bibtex, .nbib, .ris, or whatever other sort of file extension in order to actually get the information into Mendeley. We then learned how to use the Microsoft Word plugin to both do an in-text citation and to generate your references.